Ladies and gentlemen, I think the Los Angeles Rams are about to make a Super Bowl run in the NFC, and not enough people are talking about this team as one of the most dangerous squads in all of the NFL. And I've been a very big-time advocate of the Los Angeles Rams all year long. I felt when you looked at this offense at its peak, they are capable of beating any team in the NFL. And right now, they play the Minnesota Vikings in the first round of the postseason. They won the NFC West, but I've been incredibly impressed at what this Los Angeles Rams team has done this season. At one point, they were 1-4, one of the most banged up teams in all of the NFL, and they had to look themselves in the mirror with all of these injuries, with Puka Nacua, with Cooper Kupp, with almost every single guy on the offensive line, with Stafford a little banged up, and it's like we have to look ourselves in the mirror. Are we going to keep fighting, or are we going to give up on the season? They won 3 straight games, got it to 4-4, and they'd win a lot more ball games. They'd win 6 out of their final 8 games, get it to 10-6, and they really were able to rest all of their starters in the final game of the season. But this Rams team has done a phenomenal job of facing adversity and really just being a battle-tested squad as they head into the postseason. And I was looking as the final week of the season was kind of coming down to it. The Rams were 10-6, and the Buccaneers, all they had to do was win to win the division, but they had the tiebreaker over the Rams. And I was like, okay, do the Rams want to lose this game and rest their starters, or do they want to play their guys, try and beat Seattle, and get that 3 seed where they would face a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders? And I was like, well, I think it's probably more valuable for those guys to get an extra week of rest and still have a home game and either play Detroit or Minnesota. And we know that they're now playing Minnesota, and they've already beat them earlier this year, and I think they are more than capable of doing it again. And they weren't even fully healthy when they beat Minnesota. It was off a short week, and we know how great they are defensively, and I'll break down this matchup a little further in the video, but the point of this video that I'm making right now is I think the Los Angeles Rams are capable of making a Super Bowl run. It seems like the NFC is, with all the talent that they have, kind of wide open right now. There are a lot of great teams that I see really making a run right now. I would say Philadelphia, Detroit, Minnesota, Los Angeles, and maybe the Green Bay Packers. I would say those are probably the 5 teams that I would not be surprised if they all got into the Super Bowl. I think the Buccaneers, they've had a great season. I just don't see them making the Super Bowl. And the same thing with the Commanders, having a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. I don't see them making it either. But I would not be shocked if any of those other 5 teams realistically in the NFC were able to get hot, win a few games, and make it to the Super Bowl. And that's what I feel like the Rams are capable of doing. We know how great this offense can be at its peak with Matthew Stafford, with Puka Nacua, a guy who I think is arguably a top 5 receiver in the league, and we know what type of impact he makes to this Rams offense when they are healthy. Like, they looked like a shell of themselves when Nacua wasn't in, and then he came back, and this offense was easily putting up 44 points against Buffalo. And I know they kind of had that slide the final 3 weeks of the season, and that was another thing I was looking at where I was a little bit concerned, because they had that massive game against Buffalo where they put up 44 points, and then they had a short week on the road against San Francisco where they only put up 12 points. They were really lucky they were able to grit that one out, but they went on the road, put up 12 points, and then 1 week later against the New York Jets, they only put up 19 points, and one more week after that, they beat Arizona 13-9. So all 3 of those weeks, not really an impressive offensive performance from the Rams, and either one of them, not even 20 points in all 3 of those games, and I was a little bit nervous about that. I think Sean McVay and the team probably agreed that it was more valuable for them to get that rest instead of them to try and fight through Seattle and see if they could get that 3 seed where they'd play the Washington Commanders. But another thing that I've been really impressed with, even though the offensive production has gone down a little bit, this defensive production has gone up a ton. This defense wasn't a unit that kind of blew you out of the water. They gave up 42 points to Buffalo. We know how great Buffalo is offensively, but they gave up 37 to Philadelphia. Like, this defense was kind of in a questionable spot coming into this year. We knew that they lost Aaron Donald to retirement, arguably the greatest defensive player of all time, and they were relying on a very young and explosive defensive line with Byron Young, with Jared Verse, with Braden Fisk, a lot of young, twitchy guys. And those 2 main players, Verse and Fisk out of Florida State, have really impressed me this year. And this defense has done a great job of stepping up. We see that they only allowed 6 points to San Francisco when the 49ers season was virtually on the line. They only allowed 9 points to New York, an offense that really wasn't that great, but still, if you're going to hold any team to 9 points, especially impressive in the NFL, and then they did the same exact thing to Arizona. So even though the offensive production may worry you a tiny bit, we know that they can turn it on at any point with all the explosive weapons that they had. So I'm going to look at this as a major positive that this defense has done a phenomenal job of stepping up. I really think if this team can put together timely stops in the postseason, I think they are without a doubt capable of winning the Super Bowl. I think they are right now better than the Green Bay Packers. I would give them a leg up over Minnesota, even though Minnesota's a 1.5 favorite right now. We already saw them beat them earlier this year. I would say that it's probably a coin flip between them and Detroit. I know they lost to them in overtime, but look at all the injuries that they had in that game. I think they were down 4 offensive linemen, and Puka Nacua got hurt. So I really think it's a coin flip between them and Detroit, and we know how close those two play each other. I'd say the only team that is definitively better than Los Angeles right now is the Philadelphia Eagles, because they kind of smacked them so bad earlier in the year. But if this defense can come up with timely stops in the playoffs, this Rams team, it's really the sky's the limit for them. Like, this offense, I think legitimately is good enough to go out and put up 40 points against any defense. Like, Matthew Stafford, when they are really playing their brand of football, that is running the ball at a high level with Kyron Williams and getting Stafford into the play action game with Cooper Kupp, with Puka Nacua, getting to the quick screen game with Nacua, and then you sprinkle in Demarcus Robinson and you sprinkle in Tyler Higbee. Like, this Rams team has playmakers. They have guys that can step up in big spots. They were so close against Detroit last year, and I think really they are preparing for a deep postseason run because they were just so banged up this year. So I think that extra week of giving guys rest is going to be so monumental for them. But I just think the Rams are this team that nobody's talking about. Everybody's talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and this high-flying offense with Saquon Barkley in his 2,000-yard season, and deservedly so. They've been great. Everyone's talking about Detroit, how they had 15 wins, how they were just so tremendous this year offensively, and then everyone was talking about Minnesota as well. They played Detroit for that #1 overall seed, 2 14-win squads battling it for the top of the NFC, which we had never seen before. It was NFL history, but it's like you have so many storylines in the NFC, but still no credit to the Los Angeles Rams. No credit to Matthew Stafford, the quarterback who I honestly believe is the best in the NFC. If you lay out every single quarterback, you put them all in a line. Geno Smith, he's better than him. You look at Jalen Hurts, he's better than him. Sam Darnold, better than him. Brock Purdy, better than him. Like, Jordan Love, better than him. Jared Goff. So you can look at realistically every single quarterback in the NFC, and I'm taking Matthew Stafford over him, no matter how old he is. I think Sean McVay is still such a great offensive mind. Like, this team won a Super Bowl a few years ago. And if I'm not mistaken too, Matthew Stafford is the only starting quarterback in the NFC that has a Super Bowl. So he knows how to do it in the postseason. And McVay's going to have a battle on his hand against Brian Flores. But I think what Detroit did and what Aaron Glenn did this past weekend against Sam Darnold and how they played in man-to-man coverage is going to be a great blueprint for what this Rams team does defensively against Sam Darnold and how they're going to try and slow down Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, because we know this Vikings team has so many explosives everywhere. But I think this Rams team is going to come up with some big-time stops. I think the home field advantage is going to be big, and I think that extra week of rest is going to be massive as well. I think this Rams team is more than capable of making a Super Bowl run. Not enough people are talking about them, and we have to give them some more credit before it's too late and it's like, hey, they're in the Super Bowl. So I would not be shocked if they make a big-time run. Do not sleep on this Los Angeles Rams team. I'm Caden Kubler, and thanks for watching.